Hi, this is Matt. Welcome to Unbearable 73. In this video, I go over the history of the Crow. We look at an article on the latest iteration of the Crow remake, and then I give my thoughts. So, what is the Crow? You see a picture over here, probably right below my face. In 1989, Caliber Comics published a series of comics by Jameso'barr called The Crow. Barr was motivated to produce a series when his fiancée was murdered by a drunk driver. It was an expression of his rage, grief, and despair. So let's go talk about the history of the Crow franchise, so to speak, so you got an idea of where we stand. So first, the comic history. The Crow, when it came out, I'll have more details of this later, it was a very successful indie comic franchise. The first Crow comic was published in Caliber Presents #1 from Caliber Comics. The story, Inertia, in that was a prequel to the first comic series, which was a 4-issue series. The first comic series was published in the first half of 1989. The 4 issues were Pain, Fear, Irony, and Despair. The plot was basically the title character gaining vengeance for the death of his fiancée, similar to what Mr. O'Barr's grief might have wanted to do, but he didn't do anything like that. After that, the character appeared in a couple of one-shots. There was supposed to be a Crow #5 from Caliber, but it never got published. Then after that, the comic began hopping publishers, Tundra Publishing first, and Kitchen Sink Press, London Night Studios, Image Comics, Pocket Books, Gallery Books, IDW from 2012 until now, I believe, is where it would be, And then now that's the comic history. Let's talk about the movie and TV history, the motion picture history, if you will. In 1994, an extremely popular film adaptation and cult classic movie called The Crow was made. This starred Brandon Lee. This adaptation is most famous or infamous due to the tragic accidental death of Brandon Lee, the son of the legendary Bruce Lee. You can read about details of that if you want. It was a tragic stunt accident with a gun that was loaded with the wrong type of blanks. There were 3 film sequels, all of which are kind of average at best, but they tried to remain true to the comic, and I'll give you the comic plot later. The Crow City of Angels, that was probably the best of the sequels. Vincent Perez played the Crow. Then there was The Crow Salvation, which was average or bad, and Eric Mabius played the Crow. Then there was The Crow Wicked Prayer, which was pretty much crap. Even David Boreanaz, playing probably the best villain of the 3 sequels, really couldn't save the film, because his villainous performance wasn't enough. Michael Wincott playing the villain in the first Crow movie was one of the all-time great villain performances you will ever see in a movie. And Edward Furlong played the Crow in the Crow Wicked Prayer, and he is an average at best actor as well. Then there was a horrible TV series called The Crow Stairway to Heaven that tried to continue the story of the first movie, but basically screwed up the actual meta plot of The Crow, because The Crow, once he accomplishes his mission, he goes on to the afterlife. And the succeeding, I'll give you more details later. So we can try it. The only saving grace for this TV series, I think there were like 15 episodes. Mark Dacascos played Eric Draven. Dacascos is a good actor, and he has extensive martial arts background, so a lot of excellent fight scenes in the Crow Stairway to Heaven. And since then, there have been more efforts to make Crow sequels or do a reboot of the franchise or do more Crow TV shows or whatever. None of it has ever succeeded. In wrestling, I'll show you something. This is Brandon Lee as the Crow. And interestingly enough, in pro wrestling, the wrestler Sting, he used to wear all like green and orange and red face makeup and have a very exuberant personality, kind of like the Ultimate Warrior. He and the Ultimate Warrior were tag team partners, and they had the same gimmick. And one went to the WWE, and the other went to the WF. It was called Power Team USA. They just add the face paint to their sort of runaround exuberant gimmick, And then Sting was betrayed by the New World Order, if you remember that storyline from pro wrestling, where some WWE wrestlers invaded WCW and took it over and started the New World Order. That was a Hollywood Hogan storyline. He was a master planner and all that. And when Sting came back from being betrayed by the NWA, he was Crow Sting, seeking vengeance for his wrongs. And it was kind of stupid in a sense, but Sting really made it work because Sting is an awesome wrestler. So that's that pick. And then and Sting has kept that persona almost to the end of his career. He still does some appearances now. In like 2007 or so, he added some of the elements and moves from his previous Sting persona back, and he's kind of an amalgamation of the two now. Then there was some Crow novels. I think I read 2 of them. I dimly recall it. O'Barr didn't write any of them. The one from HarperCollins or the one from Random House. He did edit the one from Random House, which was a collection of short stories written by a lot of famous comic writers and novelists. That's a pretty good collection, and I don't remember the other 4 novels. One of them I thought was good of the 2 that I read. So. Games, there was a horrible video game called The Crow City of Angels, based on the Crow City of Angels movie. It's horrible. It was one of those video games that year. And there was a standard collection, like a pretty standard collector's card game. These were popular back in the 90s from Heartbreaker Press and Target Gaming. Visually it looked good, but the gameplay looked horrible. And the best spin-off of the Crow franchise is the music. This could be a whole video itself, going over album by album what's come out from the Crow. There's like 7 albums, but the soundtrack for every one of the Crow films is at least good. You should go get them. The soundtracks have all sorts of like metal and rock scores, and the scores for the first film was very good. Scores for seeding film tend to reuse the first one. And what's currently going on with the Crow? The last comic that was published was from IDW. It was the Crow Memento Mori. It was actually written by O'Barr. O'Barr hasn't written all the Crow comics over the years, but he's always helped control the property since he owns it, obviously. And now the topic of this video, the effort to make a Crow reboot / Crow 5, whatever you want to call it, has heated up again. The current project has been, and I'll put the article on screen now. So there's a link to this below. It's mostly a sort of, a lot of times when writers write these sort of things, they don't have a lot of information. They have one piece of information, which is all they really have here. Then they just sort of speculate and repeat the same things over and over again. That's kind of what this is, But I wanted to talk about this because I like the Crow franchise in general. It's an interesting character concept, and it just really has only been done right in the comics, in one of the novels, like I said, or in the short stories, and in the Brandon Lee Crow 1994 film. I would say watch the second film because it's kind of good, it's kind of average at best. Like if it's the first Crow film you see, you might think it's okay, and then really enjoy seeing the first one again, so to speak. If you watch the first Crow second, but if you saw Crow 1994 first, you'll be disappointed with every one of the sequels. Anyway, back to what I was saying. So the current Crow reboot started just germinating maybe in 2016 or so. Ed Pressman and a couple other people in his group of producers had the project, and Jason Momoa wanted to play the title character. And I will get to more on that below. Okay. Momoa dropped out of it, I think, in 2019 or something like that. And then Pressman's been trying to push forward, and now he's reset again. I guess he has more funding. He wants to hire a new director, a new lead, and get the project moving. Supposedly, and I don't remember if this is in this article, but it might be, but I heard this years ago, that O'Barr himself is involved in this project and is one of the writers for the script. So he didn't want anything to do with any Crow things after the first film. Here, the first film, especially that the Brandon Lee captured the essence of what he was doing with the comic as a Crow, and was unsure that anything could ever be done to he didn't really want to revisit it. But supposedly he was convinced that to revisit it, maybe it was money, maybe the fact they're giving them control so that they're not, so you make the mistake they did with the Crow TV show, which I'll get to below. But so that's where the project stands. They're trying to get a new director and a lead actor now. O'Barr is involved, and they're moving forward. Okay, they want to begin filming, I think, sometime this year. Okay. So, what do they do to get a Crow 5, so to speak, right? First, you need to understand the Crow is not just a supernatural action film. It's not just a ghost coming back and shooting people up or martial arts them to death or whatever. It's a dark fantasy or drama, and it does have strong supernatural horror elements, but it's equally strong elements in the sort of drama that the title character experiences. So, in the original, by the way, originally the title character is not called a Crow, but pretty much everyone calls them the Crow now. The title character was originally is what you call him in sort of undead lore terms, a revenant, someone who comes back from the grave to seek vengeance. Okay, and they became just called the Crow by all the fan base as the main character of the theme, but more later. The title character dies in horrible circumstances. He has a desire for vengeance or justice for what took his loved ones from him, because it's not his death he comes back for, or her death. It's the death of the loved one that dies with them or is harmed by the fact of their death. Right? They're brought back to life with supernatural powers, and they're virtually unkillable, revenant. In the comics, they're completely unstoppable as long as they're on mission. In the movie, the Crow, well, the Crow is actually a spirit and can't be harmed or seen by anyone but the Revenant. In the movies and the TV show, they made the Crow is an actual physical crow with superpowers, and if you hurt the Crow, you can harm the Revenant, so to speak. I don't like that. I hope they go back to it being a spirit crow, because there's a stupid weakness. A shotgun basically ends the movie, you know. And there's a character called the Skull Cowboys. The one thing they did right in the comic, which they did in none of the movies, who serves as a sort of guide for the Crow, the Revenant, to keep him on mission. Because honestly, he doesn't always know what he came back for, you know. And they did have it in the show, which was a highlight of the TV show, but they didn't have it in any of the movies, and I hope they have it in this one because it helps the audience understand what's going on in the story. You know, which means you control less of what the villains are doing and have more suspense and surprise when you confront the villains. That's a reason for the Skull Cowboy. And in the setting, the Crow lore is set to be based on old American Indian legend. I think O'Barr just blended together a bunch of stuff from American Indian and Norse mythology and a couple other just to make up his lore for the thing. So you don't need to 100% match the lore of the comics. Now, there's couple good things that did come out of the movies. Okay, even in the bad movies, in the sequel movies, the character gained the ability to turn into a crow to travel. I would do it where the spirit animal sort of absorbs them and travels with them to make it less of a Deus Ex Machina, meaning they can't always do it, but when they need to get someplace, the crow spirit will sort of take them there, type of thing. Because it solves the problem of dealing with the fact that these guys are revenants, go on killing sprees sometimes, and there are cops who could easily be involved and stuff. But this gets you around that problem, you know. Plus, also the bad guy can I'll just take a plane around the world and avoid the problem so the crow can travel on foot. Because the thing about the character back, he's not brought back to life. He's an animated corpse by the spirit of his dead self and the power the crow gives him. So he just doesn't rot as long as he remains on mission. But if he goes off mission, he'll rot and fall apart. But he's otherwise a corpse, and you try to he'll corrupt the science as a corpse. Another thing in the movie kind of did a little. The Crow. The reason the Crow characters look white in the comics is because a dead person, once they do all blood flow and heat, they become very pale. So that was the pallor of the grave, as you would say. And then in the first comic, the character Eric Draven painted himself to look like a mask from Greek tragedy, Greek comedy rather. So, and then it ran with that in the movie where Brandon Lee just did the whole face makeup rather than have him like the pallor of the dead, which I think. I wish they kept the pallor of the dead and being undead type of thing. Although I do like that the one of the things from the TV show that it reappears, like it's something they come back looking like. So I would like them to come back looking like a bit corpse-like, but they can sort of pretend to be human to blend in to get their prey. But then when they go into crow mode, if you want to call it that, then they would get the face paint type of look. I really don't want them painting their face every single time. That seems a little redundant, which I'll get to a bit more below. And what they do need to match just one particular thing. Okay, the Revenant's mission is not just to come back and kill the people who murdered him or his love. It's to come back and seek justice for the one they love. In one of the better Crow comics, it's called The Crow Waking Nightmares. I don't know which publisher it's from, but you can probably get it as a trade on Amazon or something. If I can find it, I will link to it below. Mark comes back to save his twin daughters. Mark is the name of the particular crow in this story. Because the Chinese mobster who killed him sold his twin daughters into slavery. So he comes back to rescue them, not to kill the mobster. You know. So what do they do to make a successful Crow 5 or Crow Reboot or whatever? Don't just remake the story that was done in Crow in 1984. Brandon Lee's Crow did that film excellent, and to do proper justice to that story should just be left alone. Okay, there are a ton of other comics that they could pull on for this. I mentioned one of them, The Crow Waking Nightmares, but there's at least 15 or 20 comic series they can have movies worth of stuff to do. Okay, don't seek to break new ground. You don't need to make an entirely new story for this. I mean, if they do a third or fourth sequel and do come along, that's fine. But you could just adapt what they did before. I mean, one of the successes of the Marvel films, for example, is they haven't been rehashing, breaking completely new ground. They've been using comic storylines that were proven successes and adapting them to the screen. They can do that here and save themselves a lot of headache, you know. And also, The Crow, it can't be an over-the-top action film. It's not the thing where the Crow just comes back and, you know, goes full commando like Arnold's Commando. I love Commando, don't get me wrong. But The Crow is not that type of action movie, you know. You do not do good action set pieces, but the lead actor needs to actually act in dramatic sequences. This character's kind of burning with the need to complete his mission, the experience of despair of loss, and the love of whoever he's coming back for. So you need an actor who can actually act. Don't just do what Lucas did in the prequel trilogy and have, you know, kind of wooden acting and scripting between the action sequences. You know, there's almost zero comedy that should be in this. You could have a couple of dark comedy bits, a little dark comedy joke, but there can't be a comedic sidekick. The title character should stay on mission, at least in the first film. You can go in the second, if you get a sequel franchise going, you can get like in the second or third what happened when the Crow goes off mission. You can do that, and she starts to rot and everything. But first movie should just be a almost straight adaptation of one of the better comics, other than the first one. And the sequels follow the pattern of the different revenants coming back. The Skull Cowboy has to be present in these movies, and then don't make it too big. You don't need to make a $500 million blockbuster for this to be a success. You know, think kind of like Venom, but scaled down. You don't need ultra special effects for this either. You can do this $200 million, and you can have a movie that easily makes half a billion or to $1 billion if you do it right. Director is key, scripting is key, lead actor is key. The Crow franchise, it's worth continuing, given the format allows a new reset every iteration. Once you get one successful movie, you can do more. Even if the next one doesn't do as well, you can just reset and do a third one. And maybe the story wasn't adapted well, or whatever, you know. I think the big 2-hour-ish movies are the best format for it. Not extended TV shows, because it would get a little, you know, who is the Crow getting vengeance again, like bad guy of the week type of thing. Although if they did like an 8-episode season for each Revenant, and like kind of like how they did Jack Reacher, where they adapted the book for 8 episodes. They said to be careful not to pad it out, and not to make it like this week we'll kill Bad Joe, and next week we'll kill, you know, Evil Bob. You can't just do, you know, that would make it horrible. So I keep track of Quantum Leap and doing a couple of the franchises. I'll keep track of this because I hope we get a good actor and eventually and all. And so this is my March 13th update on this. Do you guys like the Crow franchise? If you do, maybe give us your comments below. I will probably do a review of Crow 1994 at the very least at some point in the next 6 months. Or I might do a review of some of the music, or do a separate video about just all the different Crow music out there. Don't know yet. If you would like to hear that, give me a comment below. Like if you like, dislike if you dislike, assuming YouTube eventually turns it on. And subscribe if you want to hear more about the Crow or anything else I talk about. Thank you. This is Math More Unbearable. Have a nice day. I am out of here.